Season 2, Episode 3 of the Potomac RPG Podcast. So, exactly what kind of dungeons are we talking about here?
Welcome one and all to the Potomac RPG Podcast, your source for old news, tired conversation, and mediocre advice for all of your favorite tabletop role-playing games. I'm your host and person who refers to D&D as simply Game Night, Adam.
I'm the guy proudly wearing my D&D shirts, Mike.
I'm the D&D player who also plays contact sports, Andrew.
And I'm too good for this, but couldn't say no to a friend with a newborn, Nathan.
Oh, welcome to the show, guys. This is going to be fun because today we have the entire group of our Monday night game sessions, minus Tom, the DM. So I'm really excited to talk shit about Tom as much as possible, really kind of rip into him, make him feel bad about himself. Tom, just a message to you. If you want to fast forward about 25 minutes, we should be wrapped up by then of everything negative that we have to say about you. But welcome to the show, guys. Great to have you on.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Now, Mike, I know you were on last season talking a little bit how new players feel kind of getting into this hobby and all that kind of stuff. But I kind of want to dig in a little bit on our specific game and the things that have been happening. So right now, I don't even know what module we're in anymore. Do you guys?
Nope.
No.
What's the module?
We did Lost Mines. We did Ice, the Dragon of Ice Spire Peak. And now we're kind of in this hazy area. And I'm kind of curious if you guys have any idea what's going on.
I'm assuming that has something to do with Talos and maybe Undead.
Yes.
Just simply because they're the two things that we fought in the last two sessions.
Well, I was kind of like wondering, like, whenever we left Fandalen and headed up to Neverwinter, I'm like, okay, well, what are we going to do next? Like, what's going to happen? And especially we had the situation where my previous character, Narak, retired, flew off on the back of a dragon, which was great. And now you guys make it to Neverwinter, and you got introduced to a new character that joined your party. What did you think about your adventures in Neverwinter so far? Andrew, let's start with you.
Yeah, so it's been pretty interesting going to Neverwinter. I got told to go up as Wolor, the all-terrain barbarian. I was told to go fly up in the air into a tower and see what magical kind of things are there. And I found a different dimension that I was not supposed to get into, and I decided I was going to figure out how to get into it. And it seems like there's a lot of sick people in the city. And we made a lot of people angry while we were there.
We decided to get in a little fighting action, and you ended up killing someone. Is what happened. You murdered.
I mean,
somebody.
Semantics. Kill who actually killed the guy. I mean, I didn't actually throw the blow at him that killed it. I may have redirected the blow, but well,
these things happen. These things happen. Nathan, how about you? What are you thinking about our post Fandalen activities?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So I guess my not used intro would kind of highlight this of losing track of your character's background is kind of funny when you end up in your quasi hometown that you forgot about and the DM kind of forgot about too. So that was really fun. The funny exchange where I guess my ancestors, were in Neverwinter and lost our estate or whatever with the I can't remember what it is. Whatever caused the crevasse there.
Yeah, the chasm.
Yeah, but I think Tom kind of lost track of what exactly the background was too. So we had a fun little side dynamic going there on the way out of town. That was really funny.
Yeah, and Mike, your character and my character are just getting along swimmingly throughout this whole experience. What's your take on Neverwinter and the road thereafter?
Well, I think personally what I enjoyed the most was every NPC that we came across while in there being like, Tom, is this Tom? Is this Tom? Is this Tom? Until we finally ran across you. But yeah, no, it's been nice. I think we've been model citizens while in there, you know.
Of course.
Like
Only the highest.
Yeah, like Andrew said, you know, he killed a guy.
I did nothing of the sort.
Okay, we'll call it manslaughter then.
Involuntary manslaughter.
Yeah,
that's good.
Exactly. You know, I planted contraband magical items on a barkeep who who tried to turn us into the police. Yeah, you know, model citizens.
Yeah. Well, I think the most interesting thing that I see with our group, as opposed to the Saturday group that I'm in, is, number one, you guys are almost like the opposite of what you would expect out of a D&D group. And I mean that in a positive way. You like beer and sports and things that normally aren't really associated with nerd culture. And granted, obviously I don't know you guys, super well, but everything that I'm getting from across our Zoom screen is that of guys that I went to college with. And the thing that's interesting about that is how that affects like kind of your approach to gaming and what it means for the hobby in terms of the people coming into this. Because, for Nathan and Mike, this is your first time in D&D, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Andrew, now you've had some Star Wars and Pathfinder experience, right?
Yeah, that is correct. But this is my first D&D adventure.
Yeah. So like it's a weird, wild world of D&D, and it's so nice to see some of the stereotypes continue to get broken. You guys are guys that I definitely would have been playing beer pong with about 15 years ago, and it's really cool to be able to play this kind of game with people.
We are still trying to put in, drinking rules. I'm sure we could figure out, D&D beer pong at some point.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something really ripe for this group to get into.
Yeah, absolutely. And,
actually, last weekend we had some friends over, and we mentioned that we were playing D&D to one of them. She's like, "Oh yeah, isn't that like a drinking game or something?" We're like, "Well, it
can be.
It doesn't require drinking, but we certainly do it."
Every nat 1 you take a shot. Every nat 20 you pick somebody to take a shot.
There you go. Hey, that would make it for
okay. I got to write this down.
Yeah, there you go. Well, another interesting thing, and I want to get your guys' take on this now that Tom is not in the room with us, but the number of magic items that you guys have is absolutely insane. All of you have all attunement slots pretty much filled, right? Anyone have any open right now?
Nope. I'm switching back and forth because I have too many.
Yeah, we just got done with a magic shop where we bought a magic elephant. Nathan, I think you got that. Yep. A bunch of magic items. We sold. How many magic items did you sell?
It was at least 20.
I mean, it was ridiculous. And I'm kind of curious, what's your view on magical items? Do you find that they are game breaking or kind of overpowered, or do you like getting the sword of whatever, mountain or whatever?
So I think there's two different, in my mind, there's two different kinds of magic weapons. You have your magic weapons that a lot of us started with, where it's just a magical metal. It's not like a +1 or a +2 or does a whole bunch of extra damage. It's mithril instead of steel. So it kind of goes past some of those defenses and resistances. And then you have your other magical weapons that are like that, that sword that when you hit somebody, you suck their blood out and then you get temporary hit points. And so I think, first part of the conversation would be what kind of magical weapon we're talking about. But for me,
we're talking about the good stuff. Like we're talking about the blood sucking swords.
Right.
That's where I'm at.
For me, that does make it, really fun, really interesting. My hopes is that the DM kind of scales up the things we're interacting with to kind of go with those magical weapons. So it's still competitive, but with the magical weapon, you just have a lot more stuff you can do with your character. maybe you can fly, you're sucking blood out of people. So there's more to the character. And, obviously it becomes a little harder for the DM because they have to step their game up as well. But I don't feel too bad for him because he's the guy that gave me the magical sword.
Exactly.
So,
He gave us the stuff, and also like he's responsible for kind of balancing it out. So yeah, we have probably stuff that should overpower the game, but then he just makes the who we're battling that much harder, and it still works out. I mean, I'm certainly I don't know the last time I was really down, but I've certainly been bashed up pretty bad, even though I have the magical RoboCop armor and the blood sucking sword. I mean, I'm still getting my butt kicked every once in a while here.
That's true. Mike, how do you feel about those magic weapons?
I will say, I think one nice thing that Tom has done is, especially for Andrew and I, is that he's really tailored the weapons that we have to our characters. I'm a cleric. He's a zealot barbarian. So both of them are kind of tied to our deities, which has kind of been really neat. One of the things, though, is because it's tied to my deity, I'm never not using that weapon. So if like another, Warhammer would come up, well, I'm not switching over to that. I'm switching to the one that I got from my deity. So, yeah. which has definitely been nice. And I will say I am loving the armor I got that cancels nat 20s, just because I swear Tom only rolls nat 20s against me.
That is true. He does hit you with an inordinate amount of nat 20s. That's very true. But it's really interesting to see because in our Saturday night group, very few magical items, very few opportunities even to get mundane items. So this kind of whiplash that I experienced from Saturday to Monday is pretty extreme because, like, you name it, we got it. And it's shocking that you guys can keep up with it all, because I certainly can't. How do you even remember to use all the things that your magic items can do? Because I'm confused as hell every time that I as Narok, I lost track of what I had. Like, I had no idea what I had in my inventory, what I could use. It was just an insane amount of magical items. But it's great that Tom read that in you guys, that, hey, these guys are all about this magical item stuff. Let me hit them with some really good shit. And he did. So
that's one benefit I think with COVID is being able to use D&D Beyond as opposed to the sheets. Because I remember like the first 2 or 3 sessions we did on the sheet, and by like the end of it, I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, I've recorded hit points here, there, and everywhere. But actually using the online tool like that, it really keeps everything streamlined, even though I still forget about some of the stuff that I can do. But at least I can see it all in one spot. I think those really help.
Yeah. For sure, yeah. D&D Beyond is a godsend for whether you're a new player or old. Like paper character sheets are tough, man. So it's really nice having that stuff right there on the computer.
And I actually would say too, I think one of the reasons also maybe why Tom throws so many magical items at us is also just the makeup of the group. I mean, we've got a barbarian, we have a melee fighter, a war priest, and then your character has a druid, Adam. So I mean, we don't have a ton of like arcane power on our side. So I think that's like one of the reasons why he gave us the whistle that allows, someone to fly, why he gave, me the cape that I can cast Dimension Door with. So I think that also might be part of the makeup of it too, or the reason behind it rather.
Oh, it's certainly, to kind of elaborate on what you were saying, Adam, this is the first virtual game that I've played as well. And, having everything there in front of you on D&D Beyond, it streamlines the whole process. Going back to playing with the character sheet and paper. I was always a terrible note taker in school, and it kind of same thing playing Pathfinder or other tabletops. I write these notes on there that I think I know what they mean, and then like I go back the next week and I'm like, I have no idea what I was scribbling down there. So just being able to have everything in front of you on the screen. You put a second monitor up there with your character sheet. You have your one with your actual game. Makes a world of difference.
Yeah, for sure. Well, last question before we get into the topic for today. This is our Monday night group, and we're on the Potomac RPG podcast. But you guys need a name for whenever you're on the show, because I don't plan on this being the last time I have you guys on. So, what do you guys want to be called?
I mean, should we make it our group name from the?
No, we should not. We should not make that. That's a ridiculous name. But there's got to be something that you want to be known as, other than the fuck ups, that would indicate that this is the Monday night group.
I don't know what about our interactions with D&D make you think that we're good at thinking on our feet with role-playing dialogue here. I mean, much like our characters, none of us have good charisma.
That's true. All right, well, it's something for us to think about for a future episode. But let's get into the topic for today. So we've talked before about the demographics of players changing over the last decade. And more there's an infusion of players that previously wouldn't be caught dead saying the words, "I cast magic missile." Tabletop role playing has come a long way in gaming, in gaining mainstream recognition, and though plenty of experienced players have already learned to cast aside any remaining stigma associated with playing these games, newer players find themselves in a tough spot trying to explain to their social circles what they're doing and why. So that's what we're going to be getting into today. New players explaining D&D. Now, Mike, we had you on to talk about the viewpoint of a new player in the hobby, but we didn't touch too much on what it's like for a new player to tell other people about the game. So take me back here. What were some of the reactions you experienced from other people when you told them that you were playing D&D?
Well, I mean, one of the things is people that know me, it's no secret that I'm a nerd. So, I think it was pretty much, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, honestly, though, one of the things, though, is with COVID, I actually haven't told all that many people because just from lack of seeing people, like I'm not in the office, I'm working from home. So the most interactions I've had with people and talking about it have been when I'm out at the grocery store and wearing a t-shirt. I was actually at the bookstore the other day and picked up the Heroes Feast cookbook. Actually ended up getting in a discussion with the cashier about it because she was like, "Oh, do you play?" And, we just started having a converse. So I'm actually surprised by the number of people that once they see you wearing like a D&D shirt or see you picking up a book about it, also have experience with it.
True. Very true. Well, I'm curious to pop over to Nathan because Nathan, no experience before, and you seem to be in the position most likely to have people look at you a little strange whenever you say you play D&D. So what's your experience been?
Yeah. No, I think this is my first experience. Mike really kind of wrote me in. He was having a newborn and was starting this up. So, like, how do you say no to somebody? And
you can't.
When the biggest thing in your life right now is walking down the stairs to go to work and then back up to your bedroom. Like, yeah, I think I could do this. But no,
have you told anyone?
Yeah, so I kind of slow played it. Like Mike was mentioning, with COVID, it's really your social circles are small. Mine's super small to begin with. But we weren't doing a lot. And I remember early on, I just wasn't really telling people. And I play video games with a group of friends, and they were trying to get to play Monday night. We just kind of wing it whenever people are free. And one time we brought up, "Oh, we'll play Monday." I was like, "Oh no, actually, I can't. I have something else going on." And one of my other buddies was like, "Oh, I play D&D on Monday nights, so we can never do it then." I was like, "Oh, actually, that's what I'm doing on Monday nights too." So yeah,
nice, very
so
good.
It's kind of crazy once you do start talking to people. It's a much larger world than I think you get the perception of from before you get into it.
Absolutely. Well, how about you, Andrew? How about your social circles? They've been open to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because a lot of my social circles are already playing D&D or Magic the Gathering or some of the other nerd culture items out there. So for the most part, people weren't surprised if they heard I was playing D&D. I don't like broadcasts that I play D&D on Monday nights.
Oh, now you do.
Yeah. I guess I'm telling the world now. But yeah, usually it's just, if somebody asks about a Monday night, I'm like, "Oh, I'm busy" or something. I mean, be real. Nobody wants to hang out on Monday nights anyway. Like that is, the first day of the work week. But yeah, so I don't broadcast it necessarily, but I don't hide it. If, people, are talking about D&D, I'll definitely weigh in on it and kind of give them some of my experiences.
Very cool. Well,
so Adam, is this are there ever graphics on this, or is this always podcast? Because I think you could pop up a little Venn diagram of your audience and our social circles, and I think we'll be all right on that, right?
Yeah, probably. You're right. We'll be just fine. So, well, let's get into some questions for the week and kind of drill down into it. So, our first post this week comes from Reddit user. Oh, I can't say that. Kunsjeff. Sure. Who asks, explaining that you play D&D. So, my neighbors invited me and my wife for dinner, but of course that collided with my weekly D&D game where I am the DM. My wife was going to explain why we couldn't come, and she asked me, "What are you again?" I was going to say that I am a dungeon master, but it kind of sounds a little BDSM, so I went for game master. She graciously explained that we cannot come because I have a game in which I am a gay monster. Wow. All right, Nathan, you just mentioned this in terms of what you end up doing when someone asks you, "Hey, what are you up to on Monday night?" So aside from those video game friends that you were talking about, has this come up yet where you had to try to explain what it is you do?
So not a ton. Luckily, small social circle, not really getting asked what I'm up to most days. But yeah, I think by default, I kind of go with the game night and see if they go beyond that. And I don't think I'm going to be too cavalier about trying not to say Dungeons and Dragons, but yeah, maybe. I think I used to host a poker night with a bunch of friends. Sure. So this has got to be better, right? I mean, we're just screwing around, kind of lying to each other on a regular basis, big group of friends with alcohol involved. When it was poker night, I was taking money from my friends. So this should be better. I mean, there's no money exchanging hands.
That's true. I never thought about it that way. That's a good way to look at it. Well, how about you, Andrew? And I'm kind of curious outside. I know with quarantine, we haven't had a whole lot of contact, but what about like work circles or school or even significant other for that matter?
Yeah, so I like I said earlier, a lot of the people I see in work, they're all they're playing D&D, they're playing Magic and everything. So that's
crazy.
Yeah,
that is crazy that you're running into that many people who play. Like I am scared to death to mention this kind of stuff in the workplace because like I can't in my mind picture any of my coworkers playing this game. How does that happen?
Yeah, it could also be something to do with the line of work that you're in. So I work at a zoo, a lot of late 20-somethings, early 30-somethings, and the animal side of things, or you're a little nerdy to begin with. So maybe it's just that type of work is kind of grabbing the attention of, players of D&D and similarities in that.
I can see that. Like the biggest issue I have is my significant other constantly when we're talking to the neighbors or introduced us to somebody new, and the very first thing that she says about me, and he plays D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. Have you heard about it? Do you know what it is? And it's like, I've never met these people. Why are you telling me that? Of all things, like that is what defines me, and that's what you're just gonna put out there for everyone to hear, and like my face turns red. I hide immediately because I'm just like mortified that they're going to look at me and be like, "What the hell is wrong with you? You're a 42-year-old man. Like, what are you doing?" How about you, Mike? Do you run into this?
I don't that much, just because again, like with COVID and also with just having with having a 1-year-old right now. I mean, my social circle has just like shrunk dramatically. So sure. I will say my wife is more inclined to tell people that I play D&D than I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why? Why is that? Why do they do that?
I think it's just an interesting fact that they can point out.
Yeah. My wife's the same way. Anytime she can get behind the bus and run us over. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I believe both of your wives are more telling people, and then there's a shake of the head after it. Like It's not like, "Oh, my husband plays D&D." It's kind of like, "Yeah, he plays D&D."
Nice.
Although to be fair, I also then go out of my way to, especially with your wife Nathan, to exasperate it and just wear my D&D shirt whenever when she was over and
just diving into that nerd culture. I love it. Well,
which by the way, our wives are in no way, they're absolute nerds. Also, I mean, absolutely. My wife has seen all of Star Trek and everything. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So. She
they
just
got no room to talk. They got no room to talk.
Exactly.
Well, interesting point brought up by the poster there, Kunzjeff. It really is something that I related to extraordinarily well, having a significant other try to explain this game that we all play.
I have news here.
And the sound of Ralphie the News Goblin can mean only one thing. It's time for Potomac RPG News. So, some big news this week, aside from the continued anticipation of Jeff Goldblum being on an actual play podcast, absolutely can't wait for that, is that the filming of the new upcoming Dungeons & Dragons movie has started. So this film is going to feature some big names like Chris Pine, Hugh Grant, Michelle Rodriguez, a bunch more. So here's the thing, guys. As newbies to the hobby, for some of you, Andrew accepted here, are you ready to go full nerd and see what is likely to be a horrifyingly awful Dungeons & Dragons movie?
One thing I will say is it can't be worse than the Warcraft movie that they came out with a few years ago. So there's that at least.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, Dungeons & Dragons does not have a good track record when it comes to movies. I didn't see the Warcraft movie, though. How bad was it?
It was bad. It was bad. Yeah, my wife actually surprised me for an anniversary the one time. She's like, "Oh, we'll do a movie night, and tell you what, you can watch this. I know how much you like it." I think it was a trap.
Oh,
because it was bad.
Oh man. Well, how about you, Andrew and Nathan? How about you? You looking forward to diving into a D&D movie?
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting. I mean, there's some good names there in the actors, but I mean, like you said, it will probably end up being awful. But I do enjoy watching a good terrible movie. So it's just, how can we get it so bad that it actually becomes funny? I think that's the real question.
That is the question. How about you, Nathan?
Yeah, it's definitely going to end up on the playlist. I don't know if I'll see it in theaters or what that'll look like, but I mean, this is anything that I'm interested in when they make a movie out of it, I see it no matter how bad it actually is. You know, the Assassin's Creed movies, those were pretty awful. The American Assassin, the Vince Flynn books, like, I read those, so I was going to watch that movie. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't as good as it could have been. So.
You guys are so much more of nerds than I thought you were. I am learning so much from this podcast. Like, you guys are just as nerdy as I am.
I'm just trying to figure out what Hugh Grant's going to do in it.
He's the bad guy. He's playing the bad guy.
But still.
I know. Exactly, right?
Exactly. Now, what I have to wonder is your midnight release when this movie drops. Is everybody going to be showing up to the movies in like their character makeup of their actual D&D character? Because that could get
Are you
get a little crazy here, Like, you're walking in with a big set of wings or something.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not about to yuck anybody's yum. You get into that, great, go for it. But just like the midnight release for a D&D movie, not on your damn life. Absolutely not. There's no way I'm waiting in line for this one.
Yeah, this is one of those movies. I think that it's a prime candidate to watch on a plane. I feel like.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's put you right to sleep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, hey, I don't even know what the release date is for this. I think it's still TBD. I'm just not looking forward to this because as a D&D enthusiast, I'm going to want to see it for that reason and that reason alone. And I'm going to be disappointed. Let's just face it. I'm going to be disappointed. And we think you will be too. So we're going to step out for a moment here, but stay tuned. We will be right back after the break.
As any tabletop role player would know, coffee is an essential commodity for those 4-hour sessions we all go through. And a great place to get that coffee is foundfamiliar.com. Found Familiar is a couple of people with a passion for coffee, creation, and D&D, and they've teamed up with favorite artists from all around the world to bring specialty-grade coffee that celebrates the creativity sparked by Dungeons & Dragons and other TTRPGs. Use the coupon code Potomac RPG, all one word, at checkout for 10% discount on your purchase. That's at foundfamiliar.com. And with that, let's get back to the show.
How about another post? So this post comes from Reddit user Goblin Gizzards, who says, "My wife's understanding of D&D. Me, would you consider playing D&D? Wife, I don't know. I'm not sure what it is. Me, when I say D&D, what comes into your mind? Wife, people dressed as wizards running around in a field." So, Andrew, does this sound familiar? What does your significant other think we do every week?
Yeah, so we just talked about it a little bit earlier today. I asked her, straight up what she thinks I do. I will like to point out that the people dressed as wizards running around the field, that is a little more Quidditch, and there are actual Quidditch leagues out there.
Yes,
so that is definitely not D&D. But so when I asked my girlfriend what she thinks we do, she laughed a lot at first. As I'm sure Mike and Nathan's wives would do if he asked the same question. And then she thought about it, and she's like, well, you make a character, and then you go in, and then you're gonna roll some dice, and based on the outcomes of those dice rolls, good or bad things are gonna happen, which will change how the rest of the game is going to be played. And
Wow.
I kind of looked at her and I was like, that's not wrong. That's
not wrong.
That's a pretty accurate description. And like, we've never talked about it really. She doesn't play D&D herself. She'll play board games and stuff like that. But yeah, for not really talking about it, she was pretty spot on.
Yeah, that's a very surprisingly good, not surprising for her, surprising just in terms of someone who hasn't played. Like, there's a lot of wild guesses as to what D&D is, and that is almost spot on. So good on her. Nathan and Mike, how about you? Like, what's your significant other think we do?
I certainly have never gotten into the detail that Andrew just did. Yeah, I mean, there's just a list of things that she just calls me a huge nerd about, and this just, it's one out of probably 20 or 30. So I don't really think she processes it too much about what we're really up to.
Just par for the course, right?
Yep.
All right, Mike, how about you?
I'm pretty sure Kate thinks that I drink a lot of alcohol and hit imaginary things with an imaginary stick, which, to be fair, is pretty accurate.
Yeah,
Right
that is pretty good.
Well, very good. Well, hey, let's get into a different segment here. There are thousands of horror stories out there about new players in the hobby, and it just might make you guys breathe a sigh of relief knowing your introduction into the game could have gone much, much worse. So let's see if you guys can figure out the one that doesn't belong in our segment, Say It Ain't So. Welcome to Say It Ain't So, where we see if our guests can spot the one that doesn't belong. So here's how it'll work. Each of you will read a green text story about new players. 2 will be true, 1 will be false. It is your job to figure out which one is the made-up one. So, you guys ready?
Yeah, I think so.
I'll take that as a yes. Sure. All right. So I've sent each of you a story from a D&D green text, and we're going to go through one by one, and then you guys get to guess which one is fake. So, Andrew, we're going to start off with you. Go ahead and read your story.
All right. So mine is called Well Armed. Be me, says DM. Be not me, fighter, warlock, paladin, and bard. The party had just entered into a black market poker game in the sewers of town and were looking to make some easy money. They had no clue about the black market part and thought it was just a cool secret poker game. Bard and paladin decide to be the poker player and bodyguard, while the fighter and warlock are just guests. The warlock and fighter are led to a back room where they promptly captured and locked away behind a secret stone wall. They have yet to realize that they are the entrance fee. Poker game goes well and the bard earns lots of money. They decide to cheat to earn some more and are caught. Bar fight ensues. Meanwhile, the fighter and warlock escape through a drainage tunnel and go to the rescue of the other players, having learned the secret plot of the poker game. Fighter and warlock come face to face with the bouncer, an absolute powerhouse Goliath. Warlock tries to talk it out with him before the fighter interrupts and starts attacking. The warlock sneaks away and joins the bar fight while the fighter and bouncer wrestle. I roll a nat 20 on an attack roll for the bouncer, and he breaks the fighter's arm. The fighter then gets the brilliant idea to rip off his broken arm and beat the bouncer with it. I warned him about it at first, but the fighter was adamant. Needless to say, the fighter lost the battle and is now permanently crippled. His fighting stance is two-weapon fighting.
Nice.
So I just want to put it out there. This sounds exactly like something our group would do. As I was reading this, I'm like, this is 100%. This is our party.
This is our group right here. All right, Nathan, on to you. Go ahead and give us your story.
All right. Be me, 419-year-old gnome wizard. Be not me, elf ranger, second session ever. Rest of party. I see some gems embedded in the wall and try to pry them out because why not? DM, roll a strength check. Nat 1, so net 0. DM, you try so hard to get it out that you end up shitting yourself. Me, yeah, that seems fair. Anybody have clothes that I can borrow? The newbie. I have something in my inventory called a mess kit. Would that help? The DM, through tears of laughter, you know what? Yes. You pull out your mess kit. Everyone expects rations and cutlery, but you pull out an adult diaper, some soap, and sawdust to sprinkle on the mess.
Nice. All right. So that was wrong kind of mess. All right. So, Mike, on to yours.
Okay. Be me, DM. Be not me. All family and all brand new to D&D. Introductory adventure to teach them how to play. Younger sister is playing a barbarian. Goblins pop out to attack party. Ask what they do. Sister says, I kill all the goblins. No, it doesn't work that way. She insists. That's what I do. I kill the goblins. I explain that she has to hit with the attack. She rolls, it's a hit. So the goblins are dead now, right? No, they just lost hit points. But I made my roll. I explain one is hurt, not all dead. She gets up from the table and storms off. This game is stupid.
All right. So that was Errors of Youth. So we got Andrew with Well Armed, guy taking off his arm and beating the bouncer with it. We got Nathan with Wrong Kind of Mess with the mess kit, and Mike with the Errors of Youth with the younger sister who just isn't cut out for this game. So, Andrew, out of those three, which one do you think is made up?
I would say the made up one is probably the story that Nathan read.
The Wrong Kind of Mess?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any reason why?
Well, like I said, the Well Armed, I can picture this happening exactly line by line in our group. So I could imagine it happens in other groups. And the family one also just sounds, I'm picturing, Tom was telling me about trying to get his family to play, actually.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I could picture this kind of happening where he's like, that's not how it works. And then they get mad and then, they just storm off. So That's why I'm going with Nathan's.
All right. Nathan, what do you think? Which one is the made up one?
Well, I want to agree with Andrew, but I think just to be a contrarian, I'm going to say that his story is the made-up one just because it very much is like what our group would do. So I think he just made that one up just to mess with us.
Oh, okay. So you're trying to get in my head. You think I made it kind of with our group in mind, huh?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. All right. I can see that. All right, Mike, what do you think? Which one was the fake one?
I'm also going to go with Andrew's. I can absolutely see mine happening with someone. Maybe not even all that young. For instance, one of our wives or girlfriends. But then I could also see Nathan's totally happening based on the fact that when the one gnome NPC got attacked by acid, I took out the alchemy jug and dumped mayonnaise on him. So, I could also see it being like, oh yeah, would a mess kit help? And then just, hijinks ensue.
Gotcha. Well, gentlemen, the correct answer, the made up story, was Mike's story. Errors of Youth was made up. The other two are 100% as Reddit can be true. So unfortunately, none of you won.
Wow.
I can't believe it. And I can't believe those two stories actually happened. You are right, though. Andrew, that sounds like something, honestly, yours sounds like one that you would do. You yourself would rip off your own arm to beat a bouncer with it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
If it gave me some sort of an advantage, I'm there.
I'm sure in your mind you're like, well, hey, then I can get an artificer and then I can have like a super strong arm put on there and be even better. So it's actually an upgrade by getting rid of this old thing.
I watched The Winter Soldier. I know what could happen out there.
Yeah. All right. Well played, guys. Unfortunately, none of you got the right one, but it doesn't matter because the games have no points or anything like that. So you didn't lose anything. Let's get into the last post for the week, though. This post comes from Reddit user Lost Maze, who asks, why do people hate on D&D? So I am going to be starting my first campaign soon, and a lot of my friends playfully have made fun of me for playing D&D. I don't really care, and it's all in good fun. I am just curious why it gets the too nerdy rap. A lot of my friends spend hours on video games. They go to TwitchCon, etc. So it's just funny to me that this is somehow nerdier. I think it's a great and fun game, and a lot of them would actually enjoy it. Is there a way to erase this stigma? Why is it there? And what do you guys think? So the too long didn't read was, why does D&D get the more extra or too nerdy stigma? Mike, as a newcomer to the hobby, do you agree that D&D gets the extra nerdy tag?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's one of those things. For the most part, I feel like how it's portrayed in popular television helps a lot with that. You have Big Bang Theory where they're constantly playing with it, and it's just a show about being a nerd. I do think that it's helping a little bit still, that more and more people are coming out, like celebrities that are coming out and playing it. I think Travis Willingham playing it in Critical Role helps, awesome. A ton. The guy from Magic Mike, Joe whatchamacallit.
Manganiello.
Him playing, I think, he's apparently the D&D ambassador for LA right now. I feel like as more people like that are coming out, it's becoming less of a, kind of a taboo to say, oh yeah, I play it. But still a little bit.
And soon Jeff Goldblum. I don't know if you guys had heard that news before or not, but Jeff Goldblum is going to be on an actual play podcast. How freaking awesome is that? I cannot wait to hear Jeff Goldblum play an elven sorcerer. It's going to be amazing. Well, how about you, Andrew? Do you think it has a stigma? I mean, you have some play experience under your belt, so did you feel this stigma even with that experience?
Yeah, I definitely say there does seem to still be more of a stigma to it, and even to myself, when years ago when I was playing Pathfinder with my friends, I was very comfortable saying I play Pathfinder, which is just an earlier rule set of Dungeons and Dragons. But I would never say I played Dungeons and Dragons, because I did not. I played Pathfinder. It was, in my mind, it was completely different. And I don't, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And my friends all laughed at me. But there really is that stigma that, it's the super nerdy. You're sitting in the basement, you're all dressed up in costumes. And it's really not like that. I kind of look at it more as, you're hanging out with some friends. Instead of having a poker night or a video game night or playing board games or whatever it is you're doing, you're kind of escaping to a fantasy world where you get to play a character that you are not normal like in life. So, for some people, it's playing a character of the opposite sex. For some people, if they're a really good person, they play a chaotic, evil character that just smashes and steals and cheats and lies. And so you kind of get to embellish on some of those different things that you don't really do in real life.
Yeah, it's almost a lot like playing a video game that hasn't been written yet. So, the biggest detraction from video games is you're locked into whatever the video game tells you is going to happen. But with tabletop, you can make any choice that you want. You're not limited to the 4 sentences that are on the screen. You can do whatever you want and suffer whatever consequences that the DM can think of, and that kind of opens it pretty wide in terms of what could happen. Nathan, how about you? Do you feel the stigma of especially the phrase Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah, I think it definitely carries a stigma. Yeah, I guess I kind of saw it on the way in before I really started playing, and now I have a better understanding. I mean, it is nerdy. It's just a different kind of genre, I guess. The role play being so important, and it's definitely the weakest part of my playing D&D. If you guys haven't caught on to that yet, like well, what would your character do? Well, I just want to smash stuff because that's who I am. But like, oh, that's right, I'm supposed to be like playing someone. I forgot about that part. So it's just a different kind of nerdy thing. But like you said, it's the playing video games or board games. I already do that. I'm already a nerd. I don't try to deflect that. So it's not really that much different.
That's true. I can't wait to hear you guys start throwing down some voices. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but yeah, the first time one of you just like makes a new character and pops off with some different voice, I'm going to lose my mind. It's going to be amazing. I love it. But,
so I have to just throw out here with the Jeff Goldblum playing a spellcaster. If he does not use polymorph and makes himself into a fly, there's no justice in the world.
That is
or
exactly
a dinosaur.
What Matt said on last week's episode. Was,
oh, really?
I wonder if he's going to use polymorph to turn himself into a fly. So great minds think alike there, Mike. Absolutely. We're looking forward to it. But, well, hey, that's going to do it for us this week. We're out of time. But remember, if you want to send in your questions or anything you find on the internet, you can send them to questions@potomacrpg.com. Check out our store for merch at store.potomacrpg.com. This new season 2 merchandise is up there, and soon there will be a sale on the season 1 stuff. Lastly, you can follow us at Potomac RPG on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for being on today, Mike, Andrew, Nathan. Great having you on and talking to you and getting a different perspective from a different group. It was really enlightening, really fun to talk about D&D with you guys. Thank you to the rest of the Potomac RPG crew, and of course, all of our wonderful listeners out there. So, for the Potomac RPG Podcast, I'm Adam.
I'm Mike.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Nathan.
Till next time, keep those dice rolling. Keep those stories coming. And
never stop playing.
That would be you, Mike.
And I was on mute.
We're off
Going strong.